But I do have a vision map though.
You have a vision map?
Do you have that?
I don't. I have no freaking clue what I'm doing tomorrow.
Really? Oh no, I have certain things that I'd like to achieve. Absolutely.
Do you care to share any of them?
Hmm.
Well, if I was set on composing for 8 hours a day, let's say that's what I end up like. It's just not going to happen. Like, I don't know what you do when you compose, but I can't compose for more than like maybe 3 hours straight, and then like I'm done for the rest of the day. Like, I just can't. I don't know how you are.
No, I mean, I would love to be able to, write for 8 hours a day, but there's always just, life admin that always just seems to.
So I put a poll on the channel like maybe 2 weeks ago or something that asked, if you could, how many hours a day would you want to compose? So not how many hours can you compose now, but like in a perfect ideal situation, how many hours a day would you want to compose?
I would love to compose for 8 hours a day.
Wow.
I would really like the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I've never tried it. It's never happened. I get really frustrated and that as soon as you know that you have to be somewhere, that's when things start getting interesting. And that's the most annoying thing.
So you would rather compose for 8 hours. It's like 9 to 5 or whatever, 11 to 7. Or...
I just want to be able to sit down at my desk at 9 in the morning. That doesn't sound like me. It'd probably be like 10:30.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't answer your text or anything before like 11. Well, you did today, but
that's on purpose. I keep my do not disturb on until 11 because I don't want to hear from anyone before then, because I've got a whole morning routine which gets me into the right frame of mind to start writing. But then I can never start writing at that time because there's always something else that I need to do. And especially like with time differences as well, I feel as though I have to deal with everything that's going on in, London or Europe. And then so, I start a bit later. But I would love to just be able to start writing and have no interruptions and then like work quite late on into the day. But obviously, that's crazy.
That's the complete opposite of me.
I would just love to be able to do that.
I've done that. 8 hours a day. I was doing a few years. No, that's not a few years. That's a lot. 6 years ago. Wow, it's been a while. I was doing a bunch of like these residencies. Every other month I would go to, I don't know if you've done these before. Bogliasco, I've done Ucross.
Yeah. I've done Civitella,
right. Mm-hmm. So you've done, actually I met somebody, I met someone that knew you, but I forgot her name. There's these two ladies that knew you, that they did this. They were there. They were like the admin people there.
Ilaria and Greta.
Yeah, there were two of them. It's probably them then. Yeah, I mentioned.
Ilaria she was in New York a couple of weeks ago.
Then that's probably who it was. Yeah.
Love her. Yeah. Both of them, amazing.
So when you were there, were you able to do the 8 hours a day thing?
Yeah, so that was the only time in my life where I've been able to do it. And it's such an incredible place because, as you know, you did your residency in Italy. Which one was that one?
Bogliasco.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And it's just this incredible setup, and you punctuate the day by delicious meals that are made for you. And I just so happy with the music that I wrote there. And so there's a solo harp piece that's being done a lot, and an installation work, and started on an ensemble piece. And just having the time to
How long were you there?
We were there for 6 weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, I think.
You did all that work? You did like 3 pieces in 6 weeks?
Is that a lot or not very
Sounds
many?
like a lot to me. I think I did one.
Because you get to write every day.
Yeah.
For 8 hours.
I couldn't stand it. It was too much time. I was like, I feel like I just can't do something for that long. It was like, you know what happened with me when I was especially at Bogliasco, is that it's embarrassing to say. Well, I'll say it, whatever.
What?
Is that the hour before it was mealtime? That's all I could think about.
Oh, well, yeah, I get that. But isn't that when that you really enjoyed the food there, right?
Oh, I gained like 30 pounds like in 6 weeks.
Well,
Like I came back a
the one
different.
to say, but I remember you telling me that story.
I came back as as a different man. Literally, it took a long time to take the weight off. Yeah, it was not. It wasn't fun. But it was fun while I was putting the weight on.
Yeah. But what do you mean? What would you
crack.
do in that hour? Is you just be sitting there thinking about
Yeah, I would
what the
just be
food?
like, I would just well, not the food necessarily, but that okay, I get to go down to the house and like have a break in my day. Whereas I feel like now I have like for me it's the dog. Like I'm just working and I know that I can't work for 4 hours straight. I know at some point I'm going to have to take the dog up to pee or to play. Like I know that there will be some break in my day. I just don't know when it is. But when I was at the residency, it was like I knew okay at this time. It was going to be lunchtime. At this time we had to meet for dinner, and it was like that anticipation of an event that kind of I don't know why it didn't sit well with me. It just didn't work.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really good. I think it's great that you have IV because, I suppose what I'm saying is I think it would be really great for me to have IV.
Everybody should have an IV.
Because
it's just right there.
Yeah, so cute. Because there were a couple of days last week I realised I hadn't seen any sunlight because so for the first time in years, so I'm on dissertation fellowship from Columbia, and so I can at least spend more time a day, within the day writing. But then, the sun sets at 4 p.m. And then it was just kind of raining and I was like, oh, it's just dark and rainy. Do I want to go outside? And then I realised I hadn't been outside for 2 days. Just in my apartment composing, not seeing any sunlight, didn't have a light like this, nothing. It's ridiculous, And so I'm well aware that if I do have the time, I would probably fall into a trap like that because I do get completely sucked in. And I kind of like being in that zone of not really being disturbed by anything else or having to do anything.
It's very interesting because that answer, so I think that answer was 7+ hours a day. It was definitely like one of the least popular answers. Like
really?
It was like, I think maybe like 40, 50 people voted. I mean, it's not a big sample size, but it's big enough to like get an idea. And it was like maybe less than 10% would prefer to do 7+. And I would say around 50%, the majority of the votes were in that 3 to 4 hour range, which is the range I fall in.
But what do they want to do the rest of their day?
I didn't put that in the question.
Well, that's what I want to know.
I don't know. I put these questions out because I just care. Like it's not planned. I have a thought in my mind, and no one's around to answer because I'm just in the house. So I just put it out there. People answer the poll. It's very interesting, I think. It's just these questions I've never heard anyone ask. I never had anyone ask me how many hours you compose a day. It's just not something that.
Or how many that you would like to.
Or how many.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Because everybody says they want to compose every day. Okay, fine. But what does it actually look like?
That's true.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing is, well, I don't know. I was going to say to just do something every day, no matter, how long it's for. But maybe that's not right either. It's, it depends on how you like to work, when you like to work. As you know, I think everyone knows I'm not a morning person, but that's why I just block off the morning.
But is that because you're in the morning, you want to leave that free to communicate with the UK? Is that why?
That's not why. I mean, I have to.
Okay,
I think I have to do that.
Okay.
And no, I'm not I don't work well in the morning. I don't really I don't wake up very quickly. So I do the things that are just can be easily done in the morning. So emails, and I've got a whole like kind of routine to kind of wake me up, you know, like yoga and all of that. And there's just no point in having, I'm giving all my secrets away. So I'll say,
that's why we're here. We want to know. We want to know how Hannah does it. We want to know how she does it.
So yeah, so I'll say, you know, if anyone's like, oh, can we have a meeting? And I was like, yeah, I can meet anytime from 11:30. And it's because I don't want to have a meeting before 11:30, and because it won't be productive, because my mind won't be in the right space to do that. And if I don't do these things in the morning, you know, like get some exercise and do some reading and some emails, then for me, just the rest of the day is completely lost for composing and having, you know, some of those meetings.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I actually respect you a lot for that, because at least people around you know that. It's not like, that's also another thing, because I'm like, okay, you know, if I want to meet with Hannah, I know we're not going to meet before this time. And boom, and then I just know that. It's like, it's not like this game of guessing. It's like, I know that she doesn't, you know, it's great actually. And because I'm not like that, you know, it's like for me, anything goes. If someone wants to meet at 9, we would meet at 9.
Really?
Yeah, for me, it's like very loosey goosey. The only thing is like when I go to the gym, I try to keep it 3 days a week.
What time do you go?
So I've been going lately after I get back from teaching at Columbia. So I go teach at Columbia Monday, Wednesday. I get back around 2:00. And since I'm already driving from the train station, I go straight to the gym.
That's a great way to do it.
I have my clothes already in the car. So like, there's no excuse. Go to the gym, come back, take a shower, do some light work, and then usually pick up my wife like a couple hours after that, you know. And that's usually what I do Monday, Wednesday. And then the third day is very flexible. I know sometime between Thursday and Sunday, I'm going to go to the gym one more time. And it's that day is super flexible. So I just, that's good for me. But the whole thing about having a routine in the morning or this, I just have never figured out how to do that, actually.
But maybe you don't need to.
I don't know. I would like to. I think it would be nice.
That's another story.
Yeah, I think it's nice, but since we're both at Columbia, every semester is also different.
Yeah.
So like I'm teaching this semester from 10 to 12, Monday, Wednesday, but then every other day is different. And then next semester I'm teaching at 8:40 in the morning till 10. So like my morning schedule is going to be different on those days. So
oh my God, I just wouldn't survive if I was having to teach at 8:40. But that's another thing, because I always ask for the latest slot possible and no one else wants to do it. So I usually get
really? You do the latest slot?
I usually get that, yeah.
Wow.
So I do the late classes and in the summer as well. So we were finishing at 9 p.m. So that was pretty late. You know, those intensive.
In the summer,
Because they're more intense and longer, finish later. But I would much rather do that. Yeah. If I were taught in the morning and then went to the gym, I don't think I could do anything else.
It's like intense in the morning. A lot of heavy work in the morning, and then you're tired the rest of the day. Yeah, it's just interesting because everyone is different. Like there's not one way to do it.
But you have to work out what works best for you, I think, and just to stick with it and not to feel guilty about it. Because I think I sometimes, until very recently, felt really guilty about the fact that, I didn't, start, doing the 9 to 5 thing, start, working at 9 and all of these things. And especially because my family are all very early rise, everyone. So I grew up in a very early riser household and wider as well, like just not in our house, but my extended family are all very much start the day as early as possible. So I would carry a lot of guilt about that, I think.
And where are they all? I mean, I know, but for everybody watching, like, where are they all from? How did you grow up?
What do you mean?
Like, where did you grow up?
I grew up in London. I grew up in London, and my mum, so for over 40 years, so she was a head teacher, so very early start, and obviously, I was going to school for, until the age of 18, so also getting up very early. But, once I became an adult doing my own thing, I kind of felt as though that's how I had to roll, but it's just not how I'm productive. And then it was once I realised that, I was like, well, hang on, I've achieved a lot in life. I don't think... anyone could argue and say that I'm not productive. So I was like, well, hang on, so why am I beating myself up about doing these things at a time that better suits me rather than early in the day?
But you felt this way in London? Or you felt this way even in London?
I felt this way until like a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Until 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I've always felt like this actually until like very recently.
How do you mean? Which way? Sorry.
Like the feeling like I always have to do something, like all throughout the day. Mm-hmm, I in high school I used to wake up at like 4 a.m. and like study, and I would even write music actually. That was for a different reason though, because I was living in a small house with my 2 brothers and my parents, and we I just didn't have any quiet time to do my thing. But I think it's healthy to create boundaries like what you've done. Like I don't hear too many people doing that. Like this whole boundary of the morning. I mean, I just think it's really good, really healthy. So.
And it's not. I'm not doing things. I'm just doing the things that take, the least brain power, really.
So you're doing things for you.
And also,
yeah.
And also, I have to conserve my energy, and for various reasons, and like just a few health things. And I'm not going to compromise my health to say that, I've been at it since 8:30, or whatever.
Yeah, so. No, I completely respect it, because I think that in our culture. I don't know how it is. I assume London has a similar kind of work culture.
No, there's nothing like the American work culture,
really?
Honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Even in London?
No.
That surprises me. Okay.
Not even in London.
I just figured London would be closer to the US than like Paris or Berlin or Rome or any of these places.
Nope,
no?
Not
Still
even.
America's on its own.
That was a whole other thing that I had to get used to as well. And so... which I find really inspiring. I would say, moving to New York and meeting like so many incredible people who were so driven and, just really want to get amazing things done, is something that I found really inspiring. Not saying that that's not the case in London, but there's just something about this, American drive, and it really is honestly really captivating.
What is it about it as someone from the outside? Because like me, and like I come from, my parents are immigrants, but I was born here, raised here. To me, it's like I went to a high school where everybody in my high school ended up at these big colleges. So I grew up like this. To me, it's normal. But for someone from the outside, what is like the culture shock like when you first arrive and you're like, what are these people doing? Why are they doing it? I mean,
it's a pretty big culture shock, I have to say. It took me about 18 months to even really, I don't really fully understand it, but to get used to it, I suppose. And I think it was such a shock because I came with, this is more general, I suppose, rather than work ethic, but I think I came thinking because we have a common language, that it would be more European, and actually there's nothing European. This sounds ridiculous as I'm saying it, but I thought there would be kind of more European sensibilities, which isn't really the case. And once I kind of got that, I was like, okay, I understand this new environment that I'm in. But I suppose a part of that is the work culture. And I have to strike a balance, because I suppose I don't really want to get sucked into, sending emails at, until you go to sleep and all of those things. And even though I did kind of do that last night, but I apologized for it. I was like, I'm really sorry for this, late night email. And then I realized I had been sent a late night email, so it was probably okay. And, all of these things. So on the whole, I try not to, I try to still have a balance. But I just wonder, I mean, I don't know, but because, I'm a child of immigrants as well. And, my parents were to London. Yeah. I mean, my parents and grandparents were British because they came from Guyana, which is a British colony, all of these things, but they, are Guyanese. And I wonder whether it's because it's a part of that immigrant culture of wanting to work really hard and wanting a better life for your children and your family, which I understand, from my family, but it's more of it's a wider part of American culture. I wonder whether that's a part of it.
I think it is. I think it's part of the American culture to think that way too, not just the immigrants. But I think there is definitely a notch up with the immigrants and the children of the immigrants. I think there is a certain notch up, because my dad is a physician. So I saw, and it was not easy for him to be a physician either. It wasn't like he came from a privileged background and he was just, everyone in his family were doctors, so that he became it wasn't like this at all. He was like the first physician. And he had to come to the U.S. to study. He went to Alabama to study, the University of Auburn University. He got a pharmacy degree. Wasn't even anything. He didn't think he would be a doctor. He thought he was going to be a pharmacist. But then later, when he was like close to 30, he changed to medicine. So for him, he was kind of like a late bloomer. And to me, watching him, and like now that, especially when I got in high school, and it kind of understood that like the work that he did to get to where he is, it kind of made me feel like, okay, if I'm going to do this composition thing, like I got to do it the way someone is tackling a medical degree, which maybe is not, the most, I don't know.
But what do you mean by that though?
So to me, someone studying medicine or studying law, like one of these things, like to me, they're always studying, like all the time. Like they're always trying to learn. But it's always because there's a course involved. There's like these things you have to learn, and it's very structured. And there's like objective to get your degree. But I feel like composing, or especially composing, not like playing the violin or the piano, where there are these objectives that you could hit. But with composing, there's not really like, what objectives are there? You write one piece, and you write the next piece, and you write the next piece after that, and you write the next piece after that. I mean, so I approached it like, okay, I got to learn these certain things. And I was learning a lot of it on my own as well, especially in high school. So to me, that was like normal to do composing in that way, because I just figured like, well, people are studying medicine like that too, or law. Like I enjoy composing, and I want to learn as much as I can about it. But I don't know if that's the mentality most people have when they compose. I feel like composing for most, I don't know how it was for you, but I think for most people, they just kind of fall into composing. Like they found it accidentally. Yeah. They got bit by the bug, and then they're off and running. They're composing. I always wanted to be a composer.
Really?
I'm like 7 years old.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
Just really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I definitely fell into it by accident.
How did you fall into it?
Honestly, they changed the credit system at Exeter, and I needed to take another class. And I chose the composition class.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, what were you studying?
But I was studying music. I was doing a music degree.
So what was the degree called?
Music. So this was part of my point, I think, because, well, the point I was going to make is that with regards to objectives and who sets them, is that, so I had done, so in the UK you had GCSEs, A-levels, national examinations that you have to pass and get certain grades in, so that you then go to university to study the subject that you want to study at university. So I know it's a bit different in America, where it's
we have the SAT.
Yeah, but it's more like you go to university and it's more generalized, and then you major a bit later on in your degree.
Oh yeah, you could do that. A lot of people do that in the States. But But you could also, like when I did my undergrad, I majored in composition from day one. But many people do that.
At university, or did you go? Oh, okay.
Yeah, many people major in history or political science or chemistry from day one. But a lot of people also wait. They're undecided. They call it undecided, undeclared. Then they decide a year, a semester, and 2 years in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you
did SATs in music?
No. The SAT was like a general exam, like what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, but you do these exams in specific subjects. So I had always done, so suppose what I'm saying is, like, within those examinations, you have certain objectives that you do have to do to fulfill the requirements in order to get on to the next stage. So, which involve composing. So there's always a compositional element part of that.
Wow. Okay, so it's that specific. You can do. I mean, composing is part of the exam.
Well, it's required. You have to. Yeah.
Okay. So what happens if you don't get like a high mark on that? Does that mean you can't be a composer?
No. Well, it just depends what you want to do afterwards. But interestingly, I did. So composition was the component within the overall exams that I had done the worst in. And that's actually quite common for people who turn out to be professional composers. There was a study on it a few years ago, because the objectives are so restrictive, and it's about, it's not necessarily about being as creative as possible. It's about fulfilling those objectives. So I have a friend who failed her composition element as part of that examination, and then that piece went on to win BBC Young Composer of the Year. So it's so I don't really know what that tells us, but so you can have those things in place. But I suppose that the further on you get, it's about setting your own objectives and what you want to get out of your practice, I suppose. So rather than thinking of going from one piece to the next, writing one piece, then the next piece, perhaps it's more about, you deciding yourself what you want, very specific outcomes from those works. And I don't think I was doing that before I came to the States and came to Columbia. I think I was definitely just writing one piece after the other, and just trying to, do something, just trying to create a body of works.
But that's scary, isn't it? Because now, like, both of us have this body of work, and it's like, sometimes I just kind of, not often, but sometimes I'm just like, I look at the list on my website, if I'm like cleaning up my website or whatever, I'm like, when did I do all this stuff?
Yeah.
And what does this all mean, especially the order of the pieces that they're written, and like, what does this mean? Like, what is this going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Do I have any control over what's being written? It's like, it's really like scary to think about. It's not like being part of a corporate ladder or something where all right, in 7 years I'm going to make partner, or in whatever X field. It's like we there is no equivalent to that in what we do, which is crazy.
But I do have a vision map though.
You have a vision map?
Do you have that?
I don't. I have no freaking clue what I'm doing tomorrow.
Really? Oh no, I have certain things that I'd like to achieve. Absolutely.
Do you care to share any of them?
I've never done before. But yeah, no, sure. Because I think it's important to share this stuff, and I think and actually I only did one after I sat down with a good friend of mine. She's called Nadine Benjamin. She's probably the most inspirational person you'd ever meet. An incredible singer, soprano, operatic singer, but also a coach. Essentially, she's got lots of qualifications in coaching. And
like a vocal coach, or like
a life coach.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I thought we were just meeting for coffee one day. I mean, I think we were meeting for coffee one morning, but she life coached me, surreptitiously, and I can't remember where it came from, but she must have been asking me about, what do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? And it was the first time someone had, kind of presented me with the idea of actually having a vision for what you want to do with your career and your practice and your artistry, rather than just, moving from one thing to the next, actually taking some ownership and agency over what you might like to get out of, the thing that we're doing. And so I revisit it maybe at least once a year. And it's for life as well. It's like not just for career, but things I want to get out of my life more widely. But there are things, like having a debut disc and having pieces performed at certain venues, working with specific people, realising particular projects and all of those things. So that's all down there. And there's something about committing it to, not only committing it to paper, but I suppose committing it to yourself somehow, and then you somehow find the ways to make it happen. And it really does work. It's so surprising and fulfilling to then go back to this vision map or these hopes that you have for yourself, and you think, oh my goodness, I actually did that, and I didn't even realize at the time. I'd forgotten that I'd even wanted this incredible opportunity, and I find that really inspiring. Yeah. I'm
so curious, like which ones did you write down that ended up happening?
Things like I
just wonder
so like a proms commission, so really specific.
That specific proms commission?
Yeah, so I would love to. Wow. Like I grew up going to the proms every summer, especially being a Londoner and being, a young musician from, I started playing the violin at the age of 4. So always going to the proms, being really inspired there, hearing all of these new pieces. And then, I've since had, I think, 3 proms commissions, and I'm like, oh yeah, and it's something to be proud about.
But you only wrote, you wanted one. But you ended up having 3 more.
Exactly. So I was like, I would love that to happen. That will never happen. And then it did happen.
Well, so like for that one, for example, like how long ago, like how many years between you writing that down and it happening?
So that was actually about a year after.
Wow, that's fast.
Which is incredible. Yeah.
And you had like no whiff that it could happen. It's just kind of like a wish.
Absolutely not.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
Absolutely not.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm trying to think of other things. So I having a publishing opportunity, which has just happened recently. I thought that would be really cool. Not only for me, but I think for having a woman of colour being published by a publishing house, I think is really important. And I think about it a lot because, you know what, I think about every time I teach Florence Price, for example, and I just think about, you know, all of these works that were, you know, was it in the attic or the basement in Chicago or somewhere that have just been sitting there. They're just sitting there. And I think that, you know, and because I have friends who work in the industry, and, you know, with certain pieces, I think there's been a lot of work done recently. So this was a few years ago, saying we really want to perform this incredible piece by Florence Price, but the parts, you know, they haven't been edited, and, you know, they're really difficult to perform, all of these things. And so just thinking about legacy of having a diversity of composers who, you know, where people can have access to their works beyond their own lifetime, you know, things like that. Because a lot of the work that I was doing before I came to Columbia, which was, you know, specifically about diversifying classical music and thinking about whose music is published, who has access to the music written by these composers, all of these things. So publishing was on the vision map for that reason. So not just for myself, but for that wider reason. So things like that which are very, very specific, and projects that I really, really care about.
That's a good reason that's also a good reason to want to be published. Because most people just say, oh, it's just something I want to have on my resume or something to validate my music. But you don't feel validated by that. You already feel validated by the work you do. But it's that idea of being part of a legacy, like something bigger than yourself, that I've never heard anyone say, actually. So that's kind of refreshing to hear.
I think it is really important because we have to break the cycle of certain composers being written out of history. And I think that's a part of it.
And there's probably a lot of Florence Prices out there, even during her time, that we just don't know about. It can't just be her. There's probably at least, a handful.
You know, Julia Perry,
Probably more than a handful. It's just people that we don't know. I mean, even today's world, like there are so many really talented, I probably could name, like, just sitting here, 100 composers.
Of course,
Like, probably more that I'm like, I like all their music, or there's something different about them. And you know, it's hard to think about what's going to happen to these 100. These are just the 100 that I know. There's 100 that you know that I don't know. There's 100 that someone else knows that I don't know. Like, what's going to happen in 100 years from now? It's kind of, it makes you think about your, like what you were saying, your life and what you want to get out of it, because it is possible, you know, that people don't know what our stuff is 100 years from now. It's a possibility. And so it could be that the music we're writing is just for us when it comes down to it, you know. Never thought about it that way, actually.
Well, I don't know if it's a guarantee, but I think it certainly helps. You know, music's not
or the
publishing thing, because at least the music's not stuck in a cloud somewhere. You know, I suddenly thought, like, what? You know, is it just like what happens like after us? How do we make it accessible?
Well, it's weird because this is the first, our generation really. Maybe a little bit of the generation above us too, is like the first time our music is like not going to die, like literally.
Wow, yeah.
Because it's on the internet, you know, it's not just on a disc. It's not just sitting in a pile of papers in an attic somewhere.
True.
Like, it's there. Like, you can search your name 100 years from now and something will pop up. So there's also that. But then 100 years from now, there will be millions of more pieces probably. And it's kind of overwhelming to think about, to be honest, especially when it comes to the kind of pieces that we write, where there's already like a very limited number of people in the world that are even thinking to listen to that kind of stuff. And then the number of people that end up going into the field is actually probably more than well, definitely more than the amount of commissions that are out there, and even the number of ensembles that are out there. So it's a lot to think about. So you putting that vision map, actually, I think it's inspiring because it really focuses on what you want to do.
Yeah, it provides focus, absolutely.
Yeah, because I don't have that at all. It's just like, right, I had a commission come in. I was telling you up there, I had a commission come in like last week with the Imani Winds, and it literally came out of nowhere, and I didn't have on my list of things that I wanted to write a woodwind quintet, but there it was, and I actually have the time to do it in the next 4 or 5 months. It just happened, but I had no plan.
Amazing.
But it's also like, I don't have a long-term plan either. It's not like I want to write 10 concertos, or I want to write a symphony one day. I want to write an opera. I want to work with so-and-so conductor. The thought has never entered my mind, actually.
But I think it can actually focus you, because you then, if things do come in, because as you were saying, this incredible commission came in and you have the time to do it, but perhaps you wouldn't have had the time if, or maybe rather than putting words into your mouth, I can say for myself that if I'm saying, no to the things that aren't part of the vision or what I have committed to the vision map, then that also provides focus as well. Because if things come in and I say yes to everything, it means I can't do the things that I actually really want to do.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm well aware that I'm speaking from a position of privilege, because, we are at Columbia, we're supported to a certain extent, and which means that you might not necessarily have to take, all the opportunities that come through. But it does, help with making me think about and consider whether it actually, helps me stretch my practice in the way that I want it to be stretched.
I think it's important to think about it too as a young composer, and maybe as a generation after us, because like when I was in undergrad, I felt like I had to do everything. And I was doing not just contemporary music, I was doing a lot of film music.
Oh,
and I took on everything. I just did everything. I was working. And looking back on it, I had fun, but in reality, was I actually doing like something that where I'm looking back now, I'm like, was that a good use of my time, or should I have been more social? Should I have been getting to know more musicians? Should I have used my undergrad days as more of like being more well-rounded, instead of just focusing on just doing a lot of work just for work's sake? But
you gained a lot of skills though.
Yeah, skill, yes, but a lot of that skill I don't use now.
But that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's still a learnt thing. But I was going to ask, so when you look through your list of works on your website, do you ever withdraw works, or do you just add to the list?
Well, interesting. Interesting question, because there's definitely no works from when I was in high school, because I was writing since I was like 7, 8 years old. So
wow.
There's no pieces that I wrote up there that are before my sophomore year in college at USC. Yeah, everything is that year and after. I didn't take anything off. Are there some pieces that I don't like? Yeah, but
they're all on there.
They're all there, yeah. But with my stuff, it tends to be the pieces that I like get played. I know that's not always the case with you, which we can talk about if you want.
Yeah,
we don't need to, but this, like, for example, I'll tell you an example of a piece that I'm fine with the piece, but it's not my strongest orchestra piece. I have a piece called Monada that I wrote in 2015 for the American Composers Orchestra. It's been played a couple of times after that, but the Louisville Orchestra wants to do it in March. And I talked to the conductor. I showed him some other pieces. I tried to lean him to some, but he said, no, I really like this piece. I want to do it. And I said, okay, fine. It's out there. I don't think it's a terrible piece, but I just know that I have better things. At least to me, they're better. But I'm not going to say no if he likes the piece. Do the piece.
Well, this is the thing. exactly. And I mean, it's difficult because I think we're always evolving as well, and we're trying out new things. And so it can be difficult to have pieces performed where it feels like another completely different composer wrote it under completely different circumstances. And also I've written pieces that were very much heavily influenced by the commissioner. So I, felt as though I had to write a certain type of piece for it to fit into the programming focus that they had at that time. Pieces that I'd say are strong, but not necessarily the piece I wanted to write at the time, and it makes it difficult for me to, I suppose, have some sort of fondness for those pieces. But then I do recognise that people like them, and that people still want to perform it. And I actually have a great friend, conductor friend. He's incredible musician, really lovely friend. And he just loves this piece that I'm not going to say which piece it is, but he just loves it. And he plays it everywhere. And it's like we've spoken about this, and I was just like, oh my goodness, please make me maybe think about something else.
And this conductor knows, though.
He knows, because we're very good friends. Oh. But I also love that how much he loves it, and orchestras really like to play it, and audiences enjoy it as well. And so and I just kind of roll with it. Also, you've got to be savvy, because if you have orchestral pieces performed regularly, it means that you make more money in royalties as well,
course, yeah.
Which is another thing that I think about a lot, because again, a few years ago, this was very specific to UK, and I'm sure things have changed now, because there has been, positive action in trying to change who gets commissioned, all of these things. But I think it was only about 5 years ago, a study that was done where 97% of the orchestral commissions in UK were by white men with PhDs living in London. So that's how specific it was for 97% of orchestral commissions.
They had PhDs too.
So yeah.
But PhD hasn't even been in music composition.
Yeah, in composition.
But that's even strange. That's strange, because that degree hasn't been around that long. 50 years maybe. 40,
I wouldn't know. I don't know.
I don't know. At least in the States, the composition DMA PhD is not like it's a relatively new thing. Like people.
Oh, but these commissions were for men in their 30s.
Oh, men in their 30s.
Did I leave that out as well? So it's even more. But yeah.
Okay, well that makes sense, because if you included everyone, like Peter Maxwell Davies and Burt Whistle and all this, that generation, it would have been like, because like most of them don't have
absolutely
the PhD degrees.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they didn't have them growing up.
Right. Yeah. So that was the demographic, which means that, bottom line, women can't make as much money.
Money is your concern, so you think you're talking around.
Yeah, well, just thinking about the money side of things. Yeah. So if an orchestra wants to play, one of my orchestral pieces, for example, that is a piece that I would never write today, then great, it's great that people want to play it, and it's nice to have the royalties.
And I mean, isn't it possible that, not every orchestra will do this, but, for every so-and-so number of orchestras or so-and-so number of conductors, there will be one or two or more that will want to hear what's the next Hannah Kendall piece. They'll commission you to write a new piece. So it's not like their relationship doesn't just end with that piece,
true.
Right?
That's true.
But then if you said, no, I don't want anyone to play this piece, it might potentially bottleneck any new pieces.
Absolutely, yeah. So if it's a strong piece, and you can, and I think, we're pretty good at knowing whether, sometimes pieces just don't work that well, it just didn't turn out that great, and that's fine. They don't always turn out that well. But if it's a strong piece that people want to perform, absolutely, it could lead on to other amazing things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, anytime somebody wants to play a piece of mine, I'm always like, yeah, go for it. Like, especially if the piece has electronics, like this Monada piece has electronics. So I'm like, well, I don't think it's my strongest piece, but the fact that it has electronics, at least I can get another go at it and see, especially orchestra and electronics.
Yeah.
I can get another go at like making this work.
Yeah.
So there's always like an angle to it, working with that conductor again when it's been years since worked with him before. Then there's always some angle to it where it's not just about the music, but the opportunity and the people involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. Just working with people that you just really love working with. Like if there's opportunities to do that, there's nothing like it,
Yeah, because we're locked up in a room,
Yeah.
And but sometimes being with people is the last thing that we want to do, especially when you're in an orchestra rehearsal and there's like 80 people looking at you like,
can be pretty intense.
Why are you here?
That can be intense.
Yeah, but how do you deal with that? I'm so curious because you do a lot of orchestra stuff, right? So you have to show up to the rehearsals. You have to, especially if it's a new piece. I mean, is there do you get in a kind of headspace for the rehearsals, or I don't know, because I definitely have my own way of doing it. Like how to get the most stuff done that small amount of time. But
what's your way?
My way, I guess, my way is I try as much as possible not to talk.
Oh, really?
During the rehearsal, and I write everything down on the score, and I try to grab the conductor as soon as I can after he's done with the rehearsal.
Do you meet beforehand?
Usually after, because before I find that before you might say things, but they already have their own idea of how they're going to do something.
And so you don't meet with the conductor before the first rehearsal?
No,
okay.
Sometimes, but I don't feel it's not as fruitful as after the first rehearsal, and we really know what needs to be worked on. But like my mentality is like I stay away from the musicians, and I don't want to interact unless it's like something super soloistic or something like I really need to be up there for. I need to explain. Maybe during the break I'll go and show them how to do this microtonal fingering, or show them exactly where on that percussion instrument I want them to hit. Things I have to be there. Yeah. But like during the rehearsal, I don't want to be. It's their thing. I don't want it. It's almost like invisible, and I prefer it. And I even sit. I don't sit close to the front. I sit farther back, as if I'm not there.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we have completely different approaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will always meet with the conductor beforehand, ask to. And I will try and have some interaction with the musicians. Yeah, ideally I'd like, if I can, I mean, it's, almost, never possible, but to at least say, hello to as many musicians as possible. I don't know, because it just kind of helps with, I don't know, making it, a human experience, I don't know, I find. So that when, because inevitably there'll always be questions, and it somehow just makes it easier to try and, get to the bottom of what it is that you're trying to do with the music. Like if you can have an open conversation with individual musicians, I find that useful. Yeah. And especially if, for example, there are some auxiliary instruments. So I use harmonicas a lot at the moment, for example. And I know that not everyone's down with that. And but I really appreciate it if a musician is, open to doing things like that, or playing just the reeds without the instrument and, things like that. I just find that having some sort of rapport with musicians who are, doing something that they might not have expected with their instrument or with other instruments, then it makes it easier.
Yeah, especially with orchestras, they normally don't do any of those things that like a new music ensemble would do. So it would be hard to explain.
Yeah.
Like, even if you wrote it down, they're like, "You really want me to do that?"
Right. And depending on this, sort of repertoire usually that, that's being performed. Yeah, because in New York we have, so many incredible contemporary music ensembles, and if you say, can you play these two harmonicas at the same time and do this other thing, they're like, yeah, sure, I actually did something similar yesterday.
It's so skewed though here in New York. I mean,
exactly,
it's skewed. It's not like this anywhere else.
Exactly.
In the country, at least in the U.S. I don't know about other cities in Europe, but they're just down to do whatever you ask them.
Yeah, and so I think in order to even try and get similar things to happen in different areas or different sorts of ensembles, that having a conversation and meeting people, one-on-one, and, have some sort of explanation behind what you're doing and all of those things really helps.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's different than me, but I think I think your way in the long run is better, just because you're building rapport and people get to know you better. But I also have this thing where it's like, well, if I'm not here next time, can they do the piece? And that kind of worries me as well. I don't want to feel like I always have to put my input. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, but I mean, it's different for a commission versus a piece that's been played a bunch of times. Like, if the piece has been played a bunch of times, you probably don't even need to be there by that point, because there's recordings online, there's references, maybe it's even the same conductor that's done the piece somewhere else. So it's like you don't even need to really be there or to give your input, which is better in the long run for that piece. So, yeah. I mean, for me, the premiere, I don't put too much stock in the premiere. Because I know that after the premiere, I'm going to change a bunch of things in the piece to make it clearer, or the notation better, or maybe cut a little bit of this part. Or I don't take the premiere as seriously as maybe most composers do. To me, it's like a test run. And I always hope that, okay, well, if this piece has potential, I hope it gets done again. But if it doesn't, it's just dead in the water, then I think that one of my pieces that got done with, it was a piece like this. It never got played again. And I'm like, well, that piece is just dead in the water. There's no point in going back to it.
Oh.
And that's fine. Just move on.
But sorry, what makes it dead in the water though?
What? It just didn't work as I thought it would. It just didn't work. Okay. It just didn't sound the way in my head. When I got there, there's most of the time, I feel like at our level, most of the time, there's not much that surprises you when you show up, right? Do things surprise you still when you show up to a rehearsal?
Well, there was one piece where I couldn't, so it was a premiere and I couldn't be there. So I've only heard a recording, and I think that's the only time in recent years where I've been surprised, and I was like, that really did not work. I think, but I don't know because I wasn't there. But I was surprised because it was rare.
Yeah, you generally know. It's not like you have no idea. You show up to the rehearsal. Wow, who wrote this thing?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like now that's at least for me. That's how I feel. But with this piece, it was like, wow, this thing feels weird. Doesn't feel like the way I thought. And, I'm not even going to attempt to resurrect it.
And that's fine. Yeah.
In other words, renotate it, redo. There was electronics in this piece too. Redo that. It's just leave it in that chapter of my life and move on. It's fine.
Yeah, it's totally fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah. Like, not every piece has to be a freaking masterwork.
I think that is so important to say. It's so important to say. You cannot get it right every time. You cannot get it right. It's so annoying when that happens though. But then now I'm thinking of two pieces in particular. but I couldn't be at any rehearsals, and I haven't heard them live myself because it's kind of, I suppose, pandemic era things, you know. And so I wonder whether, had I been at those rehearsals, whether that would have changed anything. But then, as you say, you know, maybe pieces should work regardless of whether you're able to be there or not. But I think on the whole, I think getting the message out that not everything works every time is totally fine, you know?
Yeah, I've talked to some people about this before. And they tell me, oh, you know, I write one piece every 6 months or something crazy. To me, that's crazy. I'm like, that is like, why? It's like, oh, I need it to be perfect. I'm like, why? Why does it have to be perfect?
Well, what sort of piece is it? Is it an orchestral piece?
No,
or?
any piece. Any piece.
Yeah.
This has happened with multiple people, not just one person. It's like, why does it have to be perfect? Let's say it's perfect. Let's make a thought experiment. Let's say this piece you write is perfect. Then what? Can you write another piece after that?
I don't know. It might be called an instant classic or some such thing. You know?
And then what after that?
I don't know. Well, they're the composers who always get the big commissions. They write things, and they're called.
Well, look what happened with Stravinsky. You know, he wrote the Rite of Spring. He was like 30 years old. And then after that, he felt like he couldn't just keep going. He had to reinvent himself. And he reinvented himself twice. He just couldn't escape that perfect piece. It was so intense. I mean, I don't know personally what happened to him, but from an outsider's perspective, it was so intense that he had to completely change his writing style. I mean, you could still tell it's Stravinsky, but it was a completely different genre, doing neoclassical music and then doing the whole 12-tone thing near the end of his life. I mean, it's like, you know, there is a reason he did that. It's to kind of get away from the other thing that was a perfect piece.
Good, yeah.
And so my pieces, at least, are, and I think to some, especially your tuxedo pieces, there's like a messy quality to it that I really enjoy. Especially like you were mentioning the harmonicas, and I think I heard a piece of yours with cello where there's like a whistle effect, and also the cello's doing these kind of improvisatory type. That it's not clean. You know? It's not like these like clean, extremely precise things.
Absolutely.
And to me, that kind of writing is often associated with perfection. You think of Mozart, when you think of early Stravinsky, you think of even Beethoven. Like there's such precise writing, and that's clean, perfect. Bach, obviously.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Well, just I'm happy that came across, because with the tuxedo pieces in particular, it is about messing with that notion of classical perfection. So the whole point of those tuxedo pieces is to, mess with the expectation of what a piece for solo violin might be, or for solo cello. And in the harp piece as well, because we have these, traditional associations with these instruments, with these Western classical instruments. I think even the harp, I would say, triggers very specific oral memories for people, oral assumptions. But by, distorting those sounds with, objects, so with the tuxedo pieces, so the sound is distorted with objects associated with, the Afro experience very specifically. It is about messing with that perfection that we associate with classical music. That's the specific point of it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I didn't realize it had to do with that. I mean, I didn't read any program notes or anything. I don't
write any program notes.
Oh, is that what it is?
Very
is that
listening.
Why I couldn't find them? Okay. I was just listening. Wow, okay. I didn't realize that.
So, well, no, great.
Well, I mean,
That's good.
like, so where, like the music box. I've seen people use music boxes before, and
Yeah.
it's not a new thing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you do it in a way where it feels integrated with the piece. It doesn't feel like a separate thing. And that, I was curious. So how does that relate to that tradition then, or does it?
Yeah. So in different ways. So when I transcribe traditional Afro-Diasporic songs, so like spirituals or plantation shouts, for example, that's a way of referencing that part of my heritage in kind of, in a surreptitiously, I suppose, because coming out of, I just kind of felt that people didn't really want to hear about anything that I had to say about that. So if I put it in a music box, people think it's just kind of a sweet little childlike thing. So it's kind of it's trickery, really.
Yeah, and the fact that music is in a box too. It's the image of being
exactly
cloistered.
Exactly.
In a way.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that's kind of the symbolism behind that. And then when I use, Beethoven's Ode to Joy, or so pre-programmed tunes, or the Blue Danube or Swan Lake, or whatever, it is about reducing these huge, iconic European Western classical tunes down to these tiny little tinkling boxes that are always there in the background. So almost as though that tradition is always there, but then trying to do something else within my own music.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy especially this Tuxedo series. It's like I can follow it. It's like reading a book. In a way, it's like one chapter after another, and I feel when you're listening to it, you're invested as a listener. Whereas if you're listening to like a piece that's just like a one-off piece, that's just that, it's almost like, okay, great, like I just heard that. It's like watching a movie versus watching a film, like a Netflix series. Like people don't binge 3 movies in a row the way they binge 8 hours worth of movies, but they're 3 different movies.
Right.
But you would binge 8 hours of one show.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of the way I'm not going to listen to 8 hours of Tuxedo, for example. But you don't even have 8 hours of Tuxedo stuff.
Close.
Are you close?
No.
Okay.
No,
I don't
just
think
10 pieces.
it's not 8 hours.
It's not.
I don't think I've ever listened to 8 hours straight of contemporary classical music before.
Have you not seen that Philip Glass opera? How long was that?
I didn't see that. No, yeah. I can't sit. I just can't sit there.
Yeah.
Like I can't even write my own music for more than 3 hours, let alone listen to someone else's. But I've lost my train of thought here.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Binging.
But with the before I say the next thing, I'm going to definitely leave. If you're still watching by this point, I'm going to leave these Tuxedo pieces in the video description so you can check them out after. Don't click off though. Watch to the end and then watch and then listen to the pieces. But this I think every composer should do something like this. Because I just started, not like what you're doing, but I'm doing it with solo pieces, and I'm doing it based off of the Barrio. I'm the 100,000th composer to do this, but just basing solo pieces off of the Barrio sequenze.
Love that.
But my version is called Testa Sul, so it's like it's sequenze in Arabic, and it's like the first time where I felt like I was writing like one piece is leading into the next piece. Whereas like writing an orchestra piece, it's like I feel like the next orchestra piece has to be completely different than the one I wrote before it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But with the Tuxedo pieces, it's like very clear that these are part of the same line. Like I heard enough of them where I'm like, okay, I get what's going on.
And they all take something from each other as well. So so the first Tuxedo piece has Wade in the Water transcribed in music box, but then the cellist hums Wade in the Water in the second Tuxedo piece, for example, and Handel's a recitative from Handel's Messiah is in the music box of the second Tuxedo piece. which is quoted elsewhere in one of the other tuxedo pieces. So they are kind of all connected in that way and share musical material. So if you can hear a thread, that's what's going on.
So it's like clear that you have this idea. I'm just very curious because it's clear you have this idea of this type of piece. So how does that work when you end up like getting commissioned to write a piece? Like, are the commissioners down with you doing this very specific kind of piece? You're literally calling it tuxedo. You're literally it's literally part of this lineage. Do they feel like okay? Like, do they feel like it's what I'm trying to say is like they have their own idea of what you should write, but you have this idea to write these tuxedo pieces. So how does that
But that's
align?
the thing, I wouldn't do the commission then. I was like, well, I'm kind of really into tuxedo right now.
Yeah.
Is that going to work for you? And if it does, great. We can roll along with it. And then if not, then it probably wouldn't have come to fruition. But I don't think anyone did say no. Actually, that is not true. I wrote a tuxedo piece and the ensemble did not like it and they didn't perform it or pay me for it. So there's one.
That's possible? That they would rehearse it and not perform it?
No, they didn't rehearse. I mean, there's a lot of backstory.
Okay.
But
I mean, we don't need to go
that's
into it, but
the only occasion.
I didn't know that's even possible that you write a piece and not get paid for it, like after you're done writing it.
Yeah, well, it was a commission set, so one of the pieces that just didn't work out for them.
Okay, I see.
So, which, to be honest, I think can happen when you're trying to do something new in your music, and again, it doesn't really align with what they had hoped for, and also interesting if it takes a long time, because you can have these conversations for quite some time, up to years, like 2 or 3 years. And then by the time you come to write the piece, you've transitioned into a new direction. So it's like, do you write for what they thought you might do as a composer 2 or 3 years ago, or for where you are at the time of actually writing the thing? I think that's a really important question.
That's tough. Yeah. I mean, you gotta write what you want to write at the end of the day.
I think you've got to write what you have to write.
Yeah.
And then with that circumstance, like within 2 or 3 weeks, another ensemble had asked to perform it. So I was like, okay, well, I've lost in one way, but gained in another way. And that piece existed. And even with my opera, no one wanted to commission me to write an opera back in 2015 or whatever, and I had to produce it myself. And then by the time people wanted to present stage works by me, it existed. And that's kind of part of that vision map as well, is in, committing to what you want to do and what you know is right for your trajectory, and then hope that people might align with that eventually.
Yeah, so the opera was on the vision map. So the one in 2015, was that part of the vision map, or?
So I don't think. So no, I think that was the last thing I did before I did my first ever vision map. But I knew that was something that I really wanted to do, because I wanted to actively write a work for a singer of Afro-Caribbean or either African or Afro-Diasporic singer. Yeah. Because I just wanted one work for that to exist, to kind of help break. There was so many in UK news stories about who would perform the role of Otello, and whether they would be blacked up in makeup or whatever. And I was just like, can we not just have an opera where that isn't part of the discussion?
Or not every opera has to be about Greek mythology.
I mean, there's also that. I mean, that's a wider conversation on the subject matter of opera, but I just felt really strongly about that because, again, because I was working in the industry, so on the other side of things, and having these conversations that just weren't shifting or changing. And so I was thinking about, well, what can I do as a composer, like practically and actively? And I felt that that was the right thing to do at the time.
I mean, that's a really good message to send, because at the end of the day, if there's something that you want to do, the only person that could really do it is you.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds kind of dumb to say it out loud like that, but it's people don't take that initiative usually, you know?
Yeah, I mean, not everything's a commission. Sometimes you just have to back yourself and ask some people to, like, you know, back you financially as well.
Yeah, but if you want to do something, especially when it comes to an opera, you have to put your you have to do it yourself. It's not like someone is going to ask you to do it. You're going to have to do it yourself.
Yeah. And I think I'm feeling the same way about my second opera as well. I mean, I don't know. I think I might just have to do something similar, which is, on the one hand, I don't know. I suppose it's quite disappointing because essentially, again, I think people aren't getting the subject matter. And by the time I think I convince people, I might as well have just done it myself again, I think.
But in terms of
I might be calling on you to promote a little crowdfunder again.
Do you have it now?
No, it's just the realization I've had this week. And maybe I'm being preemptive. I'm speaking to the producer tomorrow, but I'm just it just feels the same as in 2015 or 2015, when I was kind of feeling the same with The Knife of Dawn. I was like, I just don't think anyone is going to commission me to do this thing. And I'm feeling the same. I think people don't really understand what I'm trying to do. And so much of the work is convincing people. And in all honesty, I just don't have time for that, because I know it's going to be really great, and I know it's going to work, and I know it's going to challenge some things. But just part of the work, it feels with opera, I don't know how other people feel, a lot that you don't really get with orchestral commissions or any other sort of commissions is about convincing people, which I find very frustrating.
Oh, especially if the subject matter of the libretto is not something that already exists out there.
Yeah, because this is going to be in Guyanese Creole and, you know, exploring Afro-futurist methods. And I think people are just like what?
What is that? Yeah, they can't.
Yeah.
They can't package it. It's not like something that it was a book or a play or something like this that was adapted.
Yeah.
I feel like that's very common. Like, it's almost like not an original thing.
Wait, what is?
Like a lot of the new operas being produced. Like, it's not like something that it comes from an original or source. That makes sense.
Well, then how do these people get their operas produced then? How do they do it?
I don't know. I don't touch opera. That's just me.
I mean, it could be me.
I don't know.
I said I would never do an opera again after the first one.
Really?
It was so traumatic. I got so ill. I got shingles. That's how stressful it was.
I could see that. It's like you're doing the music, you're doing the stage. Well, you're not doing the stage direction, but you have a say in it. You have a say in the cost. You're almost like a film producer in a way. You're like but that's not what you ever thought you would be. No. And then you have to write the music too.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Even the producers don't do that in a film set.
Yeah, it was so bad.
Yeah, and in that world, it's like not easier. I mean, in a way, it is easier to get the money because there is like a distribution plan at the end of it where there is like, it's almost like you have an angel investor coming in, but their hope is that they're going to get some money back.
Yeah.
But in opera, it's not, there's no return on investment.
You don't even get royalties. You get grand rights.
Grand rights, right, which are a percentage of the ticket sales.
Right.
You don't even get like the blanket license that you would get from an orchestra commission, or and you know, there's no return on investment for whoever is. I mean, sorry for the very American terminology here, but it's just true. Like when someone invests in a film, they expect to have some money back from their. I mean, not every film is going to be a success, but that's why they put a little money here and a little money there. But that's not how opera is. There's no money.
At one point, the money literally ran out. Like well, no, it didn't run out, but as in the pots of money that I could go to in the UK, just there weren't any more. Like I applied to every single fund that would fund an individual composer or an individual artist, and it was mostly successful. I think there was only maybe one or two applications that weren't successful. And then it got to the end and it was like, okay, well, we need £15,000 more, and there's like literally no one in the UK that I can go to apply for this money. And it came from some funders in Switzerland in the end. Thank God, you know.
Which is crazy because that money you didn't see any of it. It was all to the production.
Oh, I didn't see any of it. I didn't see any of the money.
Yeah, it's just gone. Well, not gone. You're paying people and all that kind of thing, but it's not. It's like you're doing it for the project.
For the project, and I am like the process. I mean, it really was horrific, but I am very proud that the work exists and that, you know, and I think it is a good work. Would I write, well, again, because, you know, it's however many years, so I wouldn't write music in the same way anymore, etc. But I think it's a strong piece. It exists. It's been done again. Amazing. But I'm really disheartened by the fact that I'm feeling exactly the same way for this second opera.
Yeah, I mean,
mostly because it's like, oh, for crying out loud, has anything changed? Has anything changed in the decade?
Well, it's 7 years, right? In the last one. Or I guess you started.
Yeah, or 8 years. Yeah, 8 years since I started thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I don't. I mean, there's many reasons I don't touch opera, but
please tell me about that.
That's one of the reasons. The financial. I just don't see the financial part of the financial part of it makes no sense to me. Not just for the fee, but everything else. I just don't get it. I get why it existed 200 years ago, 300 years ago. The social aspect, the kind of patronage part of it. I get on all of that, but it's not really like that anymore. I feel like with the opera and the operas that you want to produce, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not like you want them to be done at La Scala or the Met, or it's not. It's more like a kind of more intimate thing.
This is the thing. Like, is there not anywhere? Like, just
I don't know.
Like a room, or no. But like, I just
opera is always meant to be this grand statement,
right?
But opera doesn't need to be that way.
No,
either. It's just,
it doesn't have to be.
It's just it's at its most rudimentary form. It's some story, or not even a story, just a sequence of events, or told with singers and an ensemble with a set, and that's basically what an opera is. But the whole grandiosity behind it, it turns me off. The singing style turns me off. The singing style turns me off a lot. I can't get that sound. I like the sound, but not for my music. I just can't get it out of my head. And I just didn't listen to opera growing up either. That's another part of it. It's not doesn't feel like who I am right now. So if I ever got into it, okay, that's a different story.
And maybe you will.
But you're into it, so it's obviously something that concerns you and should concern you if that's what you want to do. So.
Well, I don't know how much I am that into it. I mean, I do enjoy opera and I go and see opera, but I understand I can understand what you're saying about it. But I do know that through pieces of music theatre, I can challenge something in the repertoire, or the things that I would like to challenge can be done really well through music theatre, I think.
Well, that's a great reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it makes it more difficult.
Yeah. But that's a great reason to do it.
And I know that I have one big opera in me, because I know this is part of the vision map. I've got this second opera and one big opera as part of the vision, and that's all I want to do. That's all I can handle.
For now, we'll see.
And I think definitely that's it. It's honestly just people management and it's just like, yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
I think what put me off about opera, ironically, because my teacher at Juilliard was John Corleone. I mean, he has these Ghosts of Versailles and this new opera he just did, Lord of the Cries, I think it's called.
Oh.
And I mean, he loves opera. I mean, he loves it. It's like part
How
of his
does he get them done, though?
But that's the
How?
thing. When I was taking lessons with him, I still remember him. He was writing the Lord of the Cries piece. He was working on it the whole time I was there. He still wasn't like done when I left, and the piece didn't get done until like last year. Like it was just like this saga, this continuing saga. And he's like freaking John Corleone, you know. It's like, and after I saw this, I was like, what hope is there for me? Number one, and number two, I don't love opera enough for me to go through this agony that I see this like giant of a composer going through, you know.
But that's also another thing. Like, I think I'm surely boring people. Oh, Hannah, what are you working on? Like, blah, or what do you hope to do next? I'm still talking about the same thing. I've been talking about it for 4 years. It's still the same project. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I'm doing it. Why am I doing this? So, yeah, as you say, it's a saga.
Yeah.
In itself.
Yeah, I just don't like that. I don't like sticking with one thing for too long. I like to be 3-4 months with a piece, and at some point I'm kind of sick of it. I don't know how people are, but when I'm with a piece for after its incubation period, it's time to let it go, and I can't imagine what it's like with the
well, maybe that's what we've learnt about each other today. Yeah. Like, you like to do short bursts, and I really like to wallow
in the
like, all day composing.
So you want to work 8 hours
many
a day?
years. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, maybe even 2 hours is good enough for me. And then film these videos. Yeah, I don't know. It's just different. Well, anyway, this was a lot of fun, and
this was so much fun.
If you want to get to know Hannah's music some more, you can. I put the links down in the description below, and please check them out. So thank you so much.
Thank you.